the general situation of Afghanistan and how human rights fits into that pattern. Introduction. Secondly, the expectations of national institutions for human rights, such as the Afghan Independent Commission, Independent Human Rights Commission. And third, the special challenges that your commission faces that most other national institutions for human rights do not face.
جناب ایشان فرمودن که امروز ما در مورد وضعیت حقوق بشری در افغانستان صحبت میکنم. البته نمو مقدار صحبت‌های من در مورد وضعیت حقوق بشری در افغانستان است که روی سه نکته متمرکز است. یکی از روی است که وضعیت حقوق بشری افغانستان در کدام حالت است و یک تصویر کلی برای وضعیت بپردازیم. نکته دومی است که چالش میپذیره و نهادهای دیگه مدنی مثلا یا چالش ها و مشکلاتی که روبروی یا به مقابل کمیسیون شما وجود داره و به مقابل نهادهای دیگه مدنی وجود نداره، اون چالش ها را روش بحث میکنه.
My core message is that your commission straddles two worlds, has its foot in two worlds. You are part of an effort to establishing a functioning democracy based on respect for human rights and the necessary institutions to function in a post-conflict situation. That's the first foot. The other foot is in a protracted conflict where hostile forces are challenging the very existence of the state. The world will look to your commission as an exemplary effort to try to balance those two realities. State building based on human rights, on the one hand, dealing with a conflict that has not yet been resolved on the other, at the same time.
جناب استیفن مارکس گفتن که امروز پیام اساسی ما یا هدف اساسی ما، پیام اساسی ما و کمیسیون شما روی دو موضوع است. یکی از او است که در استقرار دموکراسی، حقوق بشر با رعایت حقوق بشری افراد نهاد شما چه وظایف داره یا چه کرده یا چه میکنه. دومی که نهادهایی که در کشور شما بعد از جنگ به اصطلاح شکل گرفته و چالش ها و قوت هایی که چالش ها و مشکلاتی که امروز با مقابل از اونا مانع میشه. ایشان گفتن که دنیا و کمیسیون شما نگاه میکنن، یعنی دنیا متوجه ازی است. این کمیسیون با در نظر داشت از این دو کفه بالایی که ما گفتیم در حالی که کشور هنوز هم در حال منازعه است و بعد از جنگ این منازعه و زد و خورد جریان داره، چطور میتونه این دو بیلانس با هم به اصطلاح پیش ببره؟
So first, the general situation. 5 days ago, the Special Representative of the Secretary General in Afghanistan, Mr. Yamamoto, told the Security Council of the United Nations that your country is facing two serious problems today. One, the economic and social conditions are showing signs of a downturn. And two, countries in the neighborhood have not been successful and need to be more deeply engaged in peace efforts. The two core, at least as I understand, the two core problems facing Afghanistan and facing your commission. So let me ask you, is Mr. Yamamoto correct? So perhaps at the end of saying what I've just said, you could repeat the question. I'd like to know from you, is Mr. Yamamoto's assessment accurate? Two big problems: downturn in social and economic conditions, to failure of the neighboring states to bring about successful peace efforts.
با موضوعی که اول میپردازیم و وضعیت عمومی حقوق بشری در افغانستان است. 5 روز قبل سرمنشی سازمان ملل متحد جناب آقای یاماموتو در شورای امنیت ملل متحد در مورد کشور شما به 2 موضوع اشاره کرد و 2 موضوع گزارش داد. یکی از او مشکل اجتماعی و اقتصادی در کشور شما، دومی از او کشورهای در همسایگی شما نتوانستند که در آوردن صلح با کشور شما مسائل زیاده و خرج بدن تا استقرار صلح و امنیت در کشور شما ایجاد شود. این دو چالش روی کشور افغانستان وجود دارد و کشورهای دورپیش شما مانع از این شده و یکی هم کشورهای دورپیش که در همسایگی ما زندگی میکنه و دوم مشکل اجتماعی و اقتصادی. به نظر شما سرمنشی سازمان ملل متحد درست گفته؟
True, false? You want to challenge? True? Fairly true. Okay, fairly true. Let me give you another assessment. The human rights unit of UNAMA, the United Nations Assistance Mission in Afghanistan, issued its report in February, just last month, saying that the escalation in ground fighting and overall insecurity, compounded by lack of respect for human rights and international humanitarian law by parties to the conflict, particularly anti-government elements, lead to an overall deterioration in the civilian protection, reinforced by pervasive absence of accountability. So, in addition to the 2 problems that Yamamoto presented to the Security Council, the Human Rights Unit of UNAMA added a 3rd, which is failure to provide adequate civilian protection.
جنابشان گفتن که خب در تحلیل دوم ما باید بگوییم که یوناما یا اداره نمایندگی سازمان ملل متحد در افغانستان در راپور خود 2 مسئله را در راپور خود مشکلی که شما در تصویر می‌بینید مشکل ناامنی را نشان داده که به نسبت ناامن بودن، احترام به حقوق بشر، احترام به قوانین جنگ و احترام به قوانین بین‌المللی بشر دوستانه در اینجا نقض شده و ناامنی‌ها بیشتر شده و حقوق بشر درست رعایت نشده و یوناما که بخشش هم در کابل است هم تاکید میکنه به مسئله تلفات ملکی و عدم امنیت در افغانستان.
So, now let's step back to the general expectations of a national institution for human rights. I can continue, or do you want to? Okay, so on the general expectations, the priorities listed by the United Nations Assistance Mission in Afghanistan include, quote, to continue with the support of OHCHR, to cooperate with and strengthen the capacity of your commission to monitor the situation of civilians, to coordinate efforts to ensure their protection, to promote accountability, and to assist in the full implementation of fundamental freedoms and human rights in the Constitution and international treaties. This is the way the United Nations understands your role. And this is taken from the resolution adopted last year by the Security Council.
اکنون دوباره برمیگردیم به توقعات ملل متحد در مورد کمیسیون مستقل حقوق بشر افغانستان. شورای امنیت ملل متحد وقتی که فهمید که این دو مسئله که بیشتر از نام بردیم چالش‌های بزرگی در راه احترام به حقوق بشری افراد در افغانستان است، روی تاکید کمک‌ها، تاکید توانمند ساختن کمیسیون مستقل حقوق بشر افغانستان که یک فضای حسابدهی و رعایت حقوق بشری افراد در افغانستان ایجاد کنند، روی ازی تاکید کرد. این راهکار است که سازمان ملل متحد از نقش شما در آوردن مفاهیم حقوق بشری و فرهنگ حقوق بشری از کمیسیون مستقل حقوق بشر افغانستان دارد.
This enumeration of responsibilities of your commission echoes the general expectation of national human rights institutions to do four things. And these four things are defined in the Paris Principles.
این مسئولیت بزرگ از طرف سازمان ملل متحد و کمیسیون شما و سایر نهادهای ملی و حقوق بشری داده شده و بر اساس اصول پاریس روی چهار خواست از شما داره. یک.
So, have you heard of the Paris Principles? Yes, you've heard of the Paris Principles. So you know that according to the Paris Principles, national institutions for human rights are supposed to function independently of the government and carry out these four tasks. Monitor violations of human rights. I think you do that. Advise the government, the parliament, and other bodies on violations and issues relating to legislation in order to comply with human rights treaties. I know you do that. I've seen that in your reports. Third, to relate with regional bodies, and I know you've been very active in the Asia-Pacific Forum. And fourth, educate and inform in the field of human rights. So there is a fifth role that some institutions have, which is a quasi-judicial role. You receive complaints and you act on them. Does your commission do that, the fifth? Yes. So you do all of these tasks. So, well, go ahead, and then I'll continue.
خب به این اساس این چهار مورد که مسئولیت بزرگ از طرف سازمان ملل متحد به کمیسیون داده شده، یکی از این اصول پاریس است. رعایت اصول پاریس شما می‌فهمید که بر اساس اصول پاریس در سال 1991 کنوانسیون‌ها شکل می‌گیره و دولت‌ها مکلف است که حمایت کنند. که خوشبختانه کمیسیون شما بر اساس پاریس و اسناد دیگه معتبر ملی ساخته شده. دوم از این نظارت است که از کارکرد حکومت و از وضعیت حقوق بشری نظارت بکنم. یک مورد دیگه از این سوم از این در مشورتی با حکومت است که در موارد مختلف مشوره میدید و موارد دیگه هم است که شمولیت یا ارتباط شما با نهادهای دیگه فرامرزی حقوق بشری مثل کشورهای آسیا پاسیفیک است. یک اصل دیگه از یک عنصر دیگه هم مسئله تعلیم و تربیت حقوق بشری است و همچنان در پالی از این رسیدگی به شکایات که همه شما را من آگاهی دارم که کمیسیون شما این را انجام میده.
The International Coordinating Committee of National Human Rights Institutions, the ICC, has given your commission A status, and I wish to congratulate you on that.
کمیته همکاری بین‌المللی حقوق بشر و کمیته ICC برای شما حالت و یا درجه A را دارد که من این برای شما مبارکباد میگم.
So, let me review briefly what I think Professor Murthy already discussed, which is how your commission fits into the international human rights system. The international human rights system consists of the obligations of the UN Charter, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and the political supervision, you can see in the core center here, of the Human Rights Council. But it also involves, in addition to the Charter, the UDHR, and the Human Rights Council's resolutions, the main human rights treaties, most of which are listed there, and most of which have been ratified by Afghanistan. There are other human rights instruments relating to refugees, relating to labor, relating to humanitarian law, that are also part of the normative framework that guide the international human rights system. And they're further supported by regional regimes. Asia being the one with the least advanced regional regime, the Asia-Pacific Forum, does not function like the African Union's Charter on Human and People's Rights with its court and commission, the Inter-American Court and Commission, the European Court of Human Rights. These are regional institutional developments that are more advanced. So this is the basic framework of the international human rights system. However, essential to it, holding up the whole system, are national protection systems, of which did I include that in Dari or Pashto? The name of your commission? Dari. So there it is in Dari. You can have it in Pashto in English, you know it. But you are part of that national protection system that is the essence, the bedrock, the solid bedrock of the whole system. None of that other mechanisms would be meaningful unless you have effective national protection systems. That was long, I apologize to the interpreter.
بازم به طور تکرار یا خلاصه میگم برای شما جناب مفتی صاحب ممکنه امروز صبح گفته باشه که چطور کمیسیون ها و اعلامیه های اعلامیه های جهانی در شورای جهانی حقوق بشر در شورای بین المللی حقوق بشر و شکل دادن منشورها را، کانونسیونها را، فیصله‌نامه‌ها را که خوشبختانه تعداد زیاد از کشورها با اینمی کانونسیونها تعهد کرده و خوشبختانه که افغانستان هم با تمام از این کانونسیونهایی که کشورهای دیگه امضا کرده با این متحد است و این کانونسیونها را امضا کرده. همه استانداردها در حقیقت با آنکه از طرف سازمان ملل متحد دولت‌ها را مکلف می‌سازد، قسمی که آقای مفتی هم شد گفتن تعداد نهادها و دولت‌ها در منطقه هستند یا فرامنطقه‌ای هستند که با هم اتحاد میکنند در مورد نهادهای فرامرزی، یعنی تقویت میکنند دولت‌ها را. این یک تعهد دولت‌هاست در رابطه با احترام بر رعایت هر چیزی که از طرف سازمان ملل متحد به اصطلاح پیش‌بینی شده در مورد کانونسیون‌ها و این نهادهای فرامنطقوی برای محافظت از این کوشش میشن. زمانی مفهوم داره که حمایت ملی محافظت افراد در یک کشور به سطح ملی باشه، هیچ نوع محافظتی که او حمایت قانونی از طرف یک دولت در داخل یک کشور نداشته باشه به معنا به مفهوم خود.
I'm sure you all know that one of the core functions of your commission is to assist in the implementation nationally of the international treaties Afghanistan has ratified. So, when you work on this, you need to be attentive to all of the treaties you have ratified. Where do you find the quick list? Here is one source. This list that you see here, that is difficult to read on the screen, is taken from the Afghanistan page of the website of the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. On that website, you can see the date of ratification by Afghanistan of the Convention Against Torture, the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, the Convention on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women, the Convention on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination, the Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, the Convention on the Rights of the Child, and the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. Afghanistan is a leader in accepting international human rights standards, including special optional protocols relating to children in armed conflict and relating to persons with disabilities having access to an international investigation and inquiry procedure.
من مطمئن هستم که ایجاد اساسی کمیسیون مستقل حقوق بشر افغانستان بر اساس تعهد دولت افغانستان که به بیشترین کنوانسیون ها و اسناد بین المللی دیگه که لیست زیر شماره 4 می‌بینید برگرفته شده. افغانستان بیشترین کنوانسیون ها را امضا کرده. کنوانسیون منع شکنجه، کنوانسیون تبعیض علیه زنان، کنوانسیون حقوق اطفال، کنوانسیون حقوق سیاسی، اقتصادی، اجتماعی، بالاخره کنوانسیون افراد دارای معلولیت. من میتونم بگم که افغانستان لیدر است یا یک رهبر است در تعهد و امضای کنوانسیون ها و پروتکل‌های اختیاری این کنوانسیون هایی که از طرف سازمان ملل تصویب شده و همزی برای فرهنگ حقوق بشری، رعایت حقوق بشر و احترام به حقوق انسانی افراد است.
As I am sure you know, all of human rights protection, all of human rights as a national and international objective depends on moving from word to deed, from aspiration to realization, from promises to action, from ratifying treaties to implementing treaties. This is all a process of moving from rhetoric to reality.
من مطمئن هستم که همه وسیله های حقوق بشری، مقاصد و مفاهیمش که تعهد و تطبیق دولت هاست و دولت ها را رهبری میکنه، این به این معناست که دولت ها باید اونا را عملی بکنن. یعنی دولت ها او را که امضا کرد در عمل کرد از او یا در عملی کردن از او کوشا باشه.
For example, one of the issues that is raised in Security Council resolutions, in Human Rights Council resolutions, and in your own commission is violence against women. Security Council resolution of last year reaffirmed, you can see the quote on the screen, that all parties to armed conflict must ensure the protection of human rights, especially for women, children, and displaced persons, including from sexual violence and all other forms of gender-based violence, and that the perpetrators of such violence be held accountable. I know that this is a major challenge for Afghanistan because your commission in its report, Violence Against Women in Afghanistan, said, quote, violence against women is considered a widespread and undeniable reality in Afghanistan's society.
مثلا در شورای امنیت ملل متحد، در شورای حقوق بشر ملل متحد و در کمیته‌های دیگه ملل متحد از خشونت علیه زنان حتی در منشور ملل متحد تاکید شده که افغانستان کشوری است که در او زنان مورد خشونت، آزار از جنسی، تبعیض، تجاوز و غیره افغانستان با او مواجه است. زنان افغانستان در این مشکلات بسیار زیادی را دیده و این منشور ملل متحد تاکید میکنه به تمام طرفهای درگیر در جنگ که حد اکثر در تمام درگیری‌های مسلحانه خود با حقوق زنان و خشونت علیه زنان نبگویند و حقوق زنان درگیری‌های مسلح به حقوق زنان احترام قائل شوند و این راپور نه تنها راپور است که به سطح جهان از افغانستان انعکاس یافته و تمام موضوعاتش به اصطلاح حقایق است که انکار ناپذیر است.
So, as you can see on the screen, CEDAW, the Convention on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women, is the core treaty relating to this issue of violence against women, as are other procedures such as the functioning of the Special Rapporteur on Violence Against Women. Question: have you found cooperation with UN groups dealing with CEDAW to be helpful to your efforts on this issue of violence against women? Has CEDAW been helpful to you? And if so, how? That's a question perhaps we can discuss briefly before we move on. And I'm very pleased to note that there are two women in the group.
شما در پرده می‌بینید اسکرین که سیدا سند است که دولت افغانستان را تعهد کرده. سیدا سند کنوانسیون است که منع تبعیض علیه زنان است. آیا راپورتر خاص ملل متحد در مورد خشونت علیه زنان و یا نهادینگی که موضوعات حقوق زنان را بررسی می‌کنند؟ من از شما یک سوال دارم در این مورد که آیا سند که ما او را به نام کنوانسیون منع تبعیض علیه زنان می‌نامیم، آیا به شما در کشور شما این سند کمک کرده یا نکرده؟ یعنی کنوانسیون حقوق زنان که منع تبعیض علیه زنان و خشونت علیه زنان منع قرار میکنه، میته شما از این در این مورد چی نظر دارید که در کاهش خشونت‌ها کم شده، زیاد شده، رعایت به حقوق زنان است در کشور یا نیست و یا چطور؟
I suspect that the author of this report, Violence Against Women in Afghanistan, may be in this room. Is the author here? No? Yes? You wrote this? Did you write this? She's not here. Okay. But in your experience, have you been successful in working with CEDAW, or has CEDAW been irrelevant, not helpful?
سیدا امی کنوانسیون که منع تبعیض و خشونت‌ها را علیه زنان منع می‌کنه، امی مرتبط است با وضعیت زنان و طرف بهبود برده. شما از این راضی هستن یا نیستن؟ میره سوال میکنم میگه اگر کسی بود.
Anybody have any?
I think you know, if we consider the Afghan society, wherever is the rate of education, the elimination of illiteracy, you know, in the main cities, you know, the rate of the education is high. CEDAW, maybe, you know, since we have the ambassador woman, we have the minister woman, we have the deputy minister woman, you know, leading the project. This is the result of the security in the main cities, which is I personally, you know, agree and convinced. But in the main city, we have, you know, just celebrated 8 March weeks ago. We have a woman that never ever even heard about the word of the 8 March. What does it mean? They are still in the hilly area, they are still chopping the wood, they are still under attack, they are still, for example, they are just seeking a single day for a safe life. In that case, you know, the CEDAW, even the national legislation, you know, cannot change, you know, the situation for the betterness of the Afghan women.
Yes. Thank you. That was a very good point. Go ahead.
بله. یک معلومات خدمت شما ارائه کنم که بعد از اینکه افغانستان به کنوانسیون سیدا الحاق کرده، حداقل چند قانون بسیار مهم برای تضمین حقوق زنان ایجاد شد بر اساس این کنوانسیون. اول قانون اساسی ما یک ماده بسیار مهم را آورده که تبعیض علیه زنان منع میکنه. دوم قانون جزای قانون منع خشونت علیه زنان تصویب شده که انواع مختلف از خشونت علیه زنان رو من قرار داده و برگرفته از این کنوانسیون است. قانون منع آزار و اذیت زنان تصویب شده که بر اساس این کنوانسیون در واقع ساخته شده و دیگه اواخر کد جزای افغانستان هم جا میشه که در این کد جزا خشونت علیه زنان، تبعیض علیه زنان جرم تلقی شده. من فکر میکنم که حداقل در حوزه قانونگذاری ما پیشرفت‌های خوبی داشتیم و این پیشرفت‌ها بعد از الحاق افغانستان به کنوانسیون سیدا صورت گرفت.
He said that I just shared a kind of information and supporting of your question, you know. Afghanistan, after the ratification of this women convention, we achieved, you know, for example, we brought, you know, the rights of women. Of course, that in our national constitution, that there is no discrimination between male and female. That's one. And we have passed, you know, the law for the violence against women. And we have another law which is recently going to the parliament, which is, you know, disturbing money as there is a new law which is, you know, preventing people, you know, that entering in the public, the women and girls, they should not be hesitating. They should not be humiliating, like a sexual harassment.
Sexual harassment. Yes.
Yeah. And the fourth one, you know, we have brought the word violation and discrimination and the penal code, you know, in the criminal code, which is, you know, they consider as a crime. These four laws, after the ratification of the Women Convention, this is the achievements for the restore and for the implementation, for the better implementation toward, you know, changing the woman's life in Afghanistan. We have to give as an example these four laws.
Excellent. Yes.
All these changes came
After the ratification.
based on the convention.
So it was a direct relationship between the obligations of the convention and your efforts to propose laws to change them. I frankly cannot think of a better example globally of the functioning of an of a national human rights institution. That's exactly the way it is supposed to function, and the world should take notice. At the same time, you still have a long way to go. And part of the problem on this issue and many others is cultural. Of course, I'm going to turn to the security problem in a minute, but part of the problem is cultural. And if you would like, I'm happy to talk about Islam and human rights as part of the cultural background that makes any Islamic country, and in particular an Islamic country involved in an armed conflict with insurgent elements that claim to be acting on the basis of religious principles. I'd be happy to discuss that issue as well in the light of certain developments on human rights and Islam. But for the moment, what I wanted to discuss under special challenges are the questions of security and terrorism. Before I do, though, and this is the way I want to conclude the section we've just discussed, are there any other comments and questions? The example you just gave me of what you have done with respect to implementing CEDAW is, I think, truly remarkable. But if there are any other comments or questions before we move on to the situation of violence and insecurity, please make any comments or ask any questions.
ما تشکر میکنم از همه شما. مثالی که شما گفتن در رابطه با ایجاد قوانین بعد از تصویب بعد از تعهد دولت افغانستان به کمیسیون سیدا، زحمات شما قابل قدر است، دنیا باید بداند. این 100% به اون مأموریت و مکلفیت کمیته کنوانسیون‌های ملل متحد است که تعداد از مواد این کنوانسیون‌ها را جزء قوانین داخلی بسازند و یا برای قوانین جدا داشته باشند. این کار بسیار شطوری است که کمیسیون شما انجام داد. ولی راه دراز در پیش است. ما هنوز با مسائل سنتی و مسائل فرهنگی چالش‌هایی است در برابر راه ما که وجود دارد و هنوز هم ما خشونت‌های مذهبی را تندروی‌های مذهبی است که نقش زنان در امور مذهبی ارتباط می‌تواند نقش زنان به اصطلاح یک مقدار تحت چالش قرار میده و از استفاده از ابزار دینی و مذهبی در حالی که اسلام بسیار خوش است که حقوق زنان در اسلام پیشتر نامگذاری کرد و یا اونا گفتن در این مورد هم معلومات دارن ولی زنان به اصطلاح وسیله قرار داده و تحت نام دین در این تندروا و حقوق بشری زنان نقص و سرما وارد میکنه.
Any questions or comments?
چیزی که میگم پیش برم کدام سوال اگر داشته باشید که باز بحث ادامه میدیم.
Shall we move on? And perhaps when I finish this discussion of terrorism and insecurity, we could perhaps talk about Islam and human rights. But for now, I'll just move on to this question.
I think you go ahead.
So I'll proceed. Okay. So obviously, I mean, I don't need to tell you, you can tell me, that the situation in Afghanistan is very insecure and very problematic. Where else does a national human rights commission function in the presence of a military coalition of thousands of troops, 13,000 now, seeking to protect you from terrorist elements within your midst? Yesterday, 14th of March, the Secretary General of NATO said, Taliban is still a real threat. We have achieved a lot together. When we arrived 15 years ago, there was hardly a functioning state and there was hardly any real national security force. Now, you have the Afghan National Security Force, ANSF, consisting of 350,000 troops. However, Secretary General of NATO concluded that Afghanistan is still about fighting terrorism. The reason why we went into Afghanistan was a direct response to a terrorist attack on the United States, and the main reason we are still in Afghanistan is to prevent Afghanistan from becoming a safe haven for international terrorists. Now, this is the reality of March 2017. What do you think?
خب مکررم تاکید میکنم که من نمیگم برای شما و یا شما را نمیگم که ما برای من بگوییم که شرایط در افغانستان بسیار خطرناک است و بسیار خراب است. آیا که مثل شما در وجود همه قدر قوای نظامی که قوای اطلاف آمده و چطور کار خواهد کرد در قدر قوت‌های دیگه که مثلا از قوت‌های بین المللی است و چه چالش‌های مواجه خواهد شد. من به یاد دارم که دیروز قماندان قوای اطلاف در افغانستان اعلام کرد که طالبان هنوز هم باعث یک تهدید وجود داره و یک تهدید بر افغانستان است. اینا میگن که در زمانی که حکومت جدید آمده در سال 2001 طالبان در اون وقت که شکست خوردن و امریکا آمد تا به حال در اونجا حدود افغانستان و یک تعدادی که اسکرهای امریکایی در اونجا بود ممکن از 100,000 بیشتر نبود. امروز که از اون 15 سال میگذره و بسیار نهادهای دیگه هم ساخته شده در حدود 350,000 اسکر است که از خود قوای افغانستان است و اساکر خارجی هم در اونجا وجود داره. باز هم سکرتر جنرال سازمان ملل متحد میگه که طالبان هنوز هم تهدید هم بر ما است، بر منطقه است و تهدید بر امنیت جهانی است و تا با مارچ که در سال 2017 است. به نظر شما مثلا به کدام طرف میره؟ چی فکر میکنید شما؟
How does the military situation, with this predominant role played by NATO and the effort to build up the Afghan national security forces, how does that relate to the mission and role of your commission?
چطور قوات‌های نظامی نقش داره و خصوص اردوی ملی افغانستان در ایجاد فضایی که کمیسیون شما بتانه به اصطلاح در مورد چالش‌های حقوق بشری عملاً اقدام کنه.
Let me put the question another way. One could say that the situation of armed conflict and threats from terrorism, especially by the Taliban, and the situation you described so accurately of lack of economic and educational opportunities for the population would make human rights a luxury for the future. Today, with terrorism, we need to be tough. That means not being bothered with rules about detainees and things like that. Today, we have serious poverty, like the woman, illiterate, carrying wood, and so on, who hasn't got a clue what the 8th of March means, let alone anything else about human rights. Under those circumstances, wouldn't it be tempting to say, human rights are being imposed on us by outsiders? We have too much to do. We have to establish a secure state. We have to establish a minimum level of development. Let human rights wait. Maybe human rights is something for 10 or 20 years. It's a real challenge, isn't it? I think there are people in your country who believe that.
I want to add one point to your question as well, the economic issues as well.
Which?
Taliban
Yeah.
is education, lack of education, and the economic issues as well.
They address those issues, you mean?
The economic issues.
Yes.
Because the people don't have something to eat.
Yes.
Therefore, the Taliban is wanting the money. So they are going to Taliban.
So there's an appeal of Taliban. And, of course, the third appeal is the cultural one we addressed earlier. They can convince people that the religion requires them to establish Sharia as the law of the country, not the constitution was developed after Bonn. So you've got these three pressures to say, establish Sharia, it's more consistent with our religion. Deal with serious problems of underdevelopment. And third, this is a conflict situation in which people are being killed. The hospital, Sardar Mohammed Dawood Hospital, with 50 people killed by it. How can you talk to me about human rights under those circumstances? We have a population that wants to live a Muslim life. We have a population that's getting killed in hospitals, and we have a population that doesn't have water, housing, education, the things that it needs. Who needs human rights? Human rights get in the way. Human rights bother us. Human rights prevent us from doing our job. Who needs an Afghan independent human rights commission?
So we have the education programs, and we treat people, the army, the police, everyone around the country, that these are the human rights, to have security, to have a good hospital, to have a good life, the right to life, the first right. We are telling the people that this is human rights. We don't want anything else. We are not just have any connection with your religion, with your that you anything. This is our mission.
Yes.
And also, before us, you mentioned about the Security Council regulation.
Yes.
Also, they concentrate about the importance of CHRS in Afghanistan, because also they wrote in their regulation the name of Human Rights Commission.
Yes.
The UN agency must support and also work nearly with the CHRS, because if violence being in our society, and also to the same like Afghanistan, there is need, and also we need for an institution to document the violation, and also we work closely with security forces and also other people, because it is our duty how we encourage the security forces to legitimize the IHL in our country. And also there is need the work of human rights in that kind of situation.
So, obviously, you are the Afghan Independent Human Rights Commission, so you have reason to want to function, promote human rights under these circumstances, and you mentioned IHL that I'm going to get to in a minute. Before I do, the Resolute Support Mission stated, at least in a quotation that I found, that they agree with IHRC on the importance of humane treatment of detainees in Afghanistan. The International Security Assistance Forces, now the Resolute Support Mission, is pleased to note that your Commission's report highlighted the 6-phase program and our proactive response to a plan that was implemented following the UNAMA report of 2011. Now, what I want to come to now is the problems that you are facing with these human rights violations that are occurring by US troops, Canadian troops, and how you deal with that. This comes under an area that the UN, excuse me, I'm talking too long.
خب پیش از اینکه به این مشکلاتی که در رابطه با قوای ائتلاف هست، من خلاصه دیگه با بحث‌های جناب مارک استیفن برای شما بگویم، گرچه بسیار پیچیده است. خب صحبت‌هایشان تو معلوم میشه که در حالی که مسئله سنتی در کشور شما، مسئله دین اسلام و سنت‌ها و رواج‌ها، امنیت، طالبان، فقر، بیکاری، ناامنی، انفجار و بدنی‌ها در کشور شما وجود داره و نام کشور شما مثلا کشوری که در حال بحران است و در حال منازعه است، همچون چیز هم باشه. مردم از شرایط و از وضعیت بسیطو میان. مردم فکر میکنن که ما کشته میشه، مالی حقوق بشر نه اعاده میشه و نه مثلا ساخته میشه. مردم به یک سردرگمی و بی‌علاقگی به خاطر که اقتصادشان ضعیف است، به خاطر که از جایشان بیجا شده. پیشتر راپور کمیسیونی که از بخش زنان ایجاد شده، نوشته شده بود و روان شده بود، در اونها اشاره کردن وضعیت بسیار بحرانی است. شاید مردم در همچون شرایط بگویند که حقوق بشر یک پدیده بیرونی است، از بیرون بالای ما تحمیل میشه و ما ایران نمیپذیریم و ما در حال ازی هستیم که ما بر ما یک لقمه‌نان پیدا شد. این از جمله چالش‌هایی است که کمیسیون شما در همچون حالت کار میکنه و در همچون حالت به اصطلاح چطور بتانه به اصطلاح یک حامی هم حکومت و هم حامی حقوق اساسی مردم و افراد در جامعه شود که در رابطه با ارزش‌های حقوق بشری، مثلا کاهش منازعه، مثلا کاهش تلفات ملکی، بهبود وضعیت زنان و اطفال در این راستا کار بکنه. از جمله چالش بزرگ است. قسمی که میگم و بیشتر هم گفتم که خود کنوانسیون حقوق تبعیض علیه زنان که قوانین زیاد را شما ساختین، ولی ما گفتیم که هنوزم راه درازی و راه بسیار بزرگی در پیش است روی از این آمدن از این فارغ شدن با این چالش ها. حالا در مورد مشکلاتی که سربازای امریکایی یا داخلی و یا خارجی که در افغانستان است، روی این تلفاتی که می‌افزاید با این منازعه اضافه میکنه با فقر، با ناامنی، با دوری مردم از حکومت و نامه ساختن زی مردم از حمایت حقوق بشری، عدم رعایت حقوق بشریشان، عدم رعایت کرامت انسانیشان و این می‌افزاید و ازی می‌پردازد.
I remember, this may be embarrassing, but I've got the white hair to prove it. I remember over 40 years ago when the first PLO act of terrorism occurred. I was in Beirut, and a man visited where I was staying from Matara Thaura. Is that close enough to be meaningful in your language? Matara Thaura, the airport of the revolution, where 2 TWA aircraft were hijacked by terrorists. First time as an international incident. And I saw the United Nations develop its effort to deal with this issue, because the cause behind this was self-determination of the Palestinian people, a human rights cause. The means being used at the time were carefully being used to avoid death, but evolved into more deadly means of getting attention to the cause. Since then, the UN has been grappling with this issue of the underlying grievances that lead people to desperate acts on the one hand, and respect for human rights on the other. This is now called, I'm concluding with this is now called Promotion and Protection of Human Rights and Fundamental Freedoms while Countering Terrorism. Years ago, it had a much longer title in the UN. It was something like Protecting Human Rights while addressing the underlying causes that lead people in desperation to resort to acts of violence, etc., etc. Now it's a shorter title, but this is what it's all about, and this is what I want to talk about as my final point.
من به خاطر دارم 40 سال پیش سازمان آزادی بخش فلسطین که به نام پیلو یاد میکنن یک عمل تروریستی را که بعد وقت بیروت بودم انجام داد و این عمل در اختطاف یک طیاره در میدان هوایی بیروت بود. نام از در وقت از این عمل در اون وقت نامش انقلاب میدان هوایی گذاشتن که به عربی و انگلیسی همون اصطلاح معنایش تو میشه که انقلاب میدان هوایی، یعنی شروع یا مبدأ انقلاب از اینجا شروع میشه و این معنا بود که اون طیاره از میدان اختطاف کرده بودن و روی ضربات شد. خب این اولین تصادم بود در 40 سال گذشته که به حقوق پیوست و ملل متحد فیصله کرد به حاکمیت مردم فلسطین که اینا باید به سرنوشت خود تصمیم خود داشته باشن و از وضعیت اجمالی که هست از اون برآیند. خب با توجه به این موضوع در اون وقت یک مفهوم ایجاد شد که حقوق بشر به حقوق بشر قسم نگاشته شد که حقوق بشر در یک دست و عدالت به دست دیگه افرادی که در این مورد فکر میکنن گذاشته شد. یعنی حقوق بشر و عدالت بدون عدالت نمیشه حقوق بشر تامین شه و بدون رعایت حقوق بشری نمیتونه آدم به اصطلاح به عدالت دسترسی پیدا کنه.
So today, there is a procedure in the United Nations of a special rapporteur on the promotion and protection of human rights and fundamental freedoms while countering terrorism, and there is a regular resolution and agenda item at the Human Rights Council. In 2019, in a typical resolution about human rights and terrorism, the Human Rights Council, in a long resolution, said many things, but essentially these two things. One, it reaffirmed its strong and unequivocal condemnation of all acts, methods, practices, and finances of terrorism. That you would expect. And two, urges states while combating terrorism to respect and protect all human rights.
Excuse me, sorry,
Yes.
could you repeat that first?
Sure, it's on the screen there. The resolution and all of the resolutions since way back when I was describing the situation 40 years ago attempts to balance two things. One, strong and unequivocal condemnation of all acts, methods, practices, and financing of terrorism. That's first. and at the same time, second, urges states, while countering terrorism, to respect and protect all human rights. Now, is this possible?
خب امروز میگه بعد از این واقعی که در او 40 سال پیش اتفاق افتاد، امروز پروسیجری در سازمان ملل متحد برای جلوگیری از تروریسم در قطعنامه شورای حقوق بشر ملل متحد و شورای امنیت بسیار اضافه شده. دو بخش بسیار عمده داره، یکی تقویت قوانین منشور و اعلامیه ها و قوانین سخت علیه تروریسم و دوم تاکید بیشتر سازمان ملل بر عملکرد دولت ها بر رعایت موضوعات حقوق بشری و تطبیق مفاهیم حقوق بشری و کنوانسیون ها.
The same resolution stresses the responsibility of states to protect persons in full compliance with international human rights law, refugee law, and humanitarian law. Now, I'm sure you know a lot about international humanitarian law. The problem is, where do you find the norms of international humanitarian law that apply to the current situation in Afghanistan? Is this an international war in which all 4 Geneva Conventions and Protocol 1 applies, or is it something else? So let me come back. Human rights and terrorism, condemn terrorism, at the same time respect human rights. Is that possible? Secondly, where does humanitarian law fit into this? These are the questions that I hope we can discuss briefly, and especially, since you mentioned humanitarian law, let's grapple with that a little bit.
So human rights and condemn of the act of terrorism, the third one?
So there's the basic position, condemn terrorism, to, while doing this, respect human rights.
Okay.
And then at the same time, part of the picture is humanitarian law, not the same thing as human rights.
خب این خطرنامه در مورد مسئولیت خطرنامه که ما پیشتر از اجرام بودیم در حمایت افراد است، در حمایت حقوق بشری افراد است و قوانین بین المللی که افغانستان هم متعهد به او است، قوانین بین المللی بشر دوستانه و در افغانستان جمع پروتکل‌های چهارگانه ژنوا، جمع پروتکل جمع زمینی اولش از جمله مواردی است که دولت افغانستان مکلفیت دارد در کاهش تلفات ملکی و احترام به حقوق افراد ملکی در زمان جنگ و این قوانین بین المللی بشر دوستانه.
To drive this point home, let me ask your help. I just saw a quotation from somebody on your commission that I would like you to explain. I recently read that Rafiullah Bidar, is he here? No, but he's in Gardez.
No, he has shifted to election commission.
He's shifted to the election commission. Can you explain to me this quotation? He says, this commission was set up with funding from the United States Congress. And he is quoted in a newspaper as saying, all I do, this is when he was your regional director in Gardez, right? He said, all I do nowadays is chart complaints against the US military. Many thousands of people have been rounded up and detained by them. Those who've been freed say that they were held alongside foreign detainees who've been brought into the country to be processed. No one is charged. No one is identified. No international monitors are allowed into the US jails. People who have been arrested say they've been brutalized. The tactics are beyond belief. Bidar maintains extensive records of exit interviews conducted with released prisoners. because American authorities will not allow him to interview captives currently in detention. So your commission is in a tight situation, it would appear.
Actually, sir, this is the speeches of Dr. Rafiullah Bedar, or he mentioned from the third person.
First person.
Yeah, but
All I do nowadays, this is a direct quote from The Guardian. I'm trying to understand this.
Yes, I have to say that, while he was the regional manager of Gardi's regional office, it means that he was 6 years ago, no, not now, 6 or 7 years ago. After Gardi's, he shifted, for 4 years to the eastern zone of Jalalabad regional office. After that, for 3 years or 2.5 years, he was the spokesman of the Human Rights Commission, which is now replaced by Mr. Bilal. Now he is our spokesman. I would suggest this because he has a bright mind person and has a master's degree from Moscow and these Eastern European countries. I think that since we have a base here, the American base in Gardez, American base in Paktika, American base in Horst, I do agree with him, but to many violation, for example, one of the marriage of these Haqqani related people from Sitikandau to near the host, it was about 104 or 5 caught, just celebrating the wedding party. It's attacked by the US Army on that time, at the beginning of the new government. Secondly, the most violation of the US troops in these valleys of Sitikandau and Host and Zadran and Paktika, I think, the complainants come because we have the registration and monitoring of human rights section in the structure of our commission. Because of Ms. Triping, I think that, he reported, as you mentioned, that one of the challenges is toward the Human Rights Commission that people say this is the Western phenomenon and it's from West. Many people come to the Human Rights Commission. Even nowadays, they're not convinced. Recently, we trained the Afghan border police in connection of the human rights principle, IHL, how to behave with people. Believe me, now they also, they think that this is Western. We say you should open kindly, the Afghan constitution. It's based on the constitution. I think this is, the reporting or the complaining for the monitoring and investigation section of Gardiz. The issue of Dr. Bedar and Gardiz, it is, 8 years back.
Yeah. Thank you very much. This puts it in context. And the context is one that I see of your commission being able to maintain the principle of independence that's included in the Paris Principles, contending with extremely complex situations of the Canadians and the detention there that you got involved in, of this situation that you just described, and an evolving situation with the security continuing to be an enormous challenge on the institutions that you're seeking to build up to respect human rights. I cannot imagine a more daunting challenge for a National Human Rights Commission than what you are facing.
ولی میگن که چالش‌های بسیار بزرگی موجود است به نزد شما در رابطه با رعایت حقوق بشری و استقرار حقوق بشری در جامعه افغانستان.
So a final observation, because I see Dr. Murthy is here and we're probably getting close to the conclusion. On the subject of international humanitarian law, which you have to deal with at the same time as international human rights law, you have undoubtedly followed the evolution of a wartime situation in 2001-2002, in which the full range of the law applying to international armed conflict applied, to the situation today in which Article 3, common to the four Geneva Conventions, and Protocol 2, relating to non-international armed conflicts, applies, with the additional problem of whether and to what extent these rules of humanitarian law apply to the armed non-state actors. Is Taliban bound by the same rules or not? And in the literature, there is lots of discussion about the Taliban's code of conduct and whether that code of conduct is moving in the direction of some form of acknowledgement of IHL. Your commission, I assume, has to deal with that problem as well. You need the NATO forces to respect IHL. You need to prevent Taliban from committing acts. In that process, do you also wish to convince Taliban to comply with IHL? What has been the position of your commission on that issue?
خب جناب ایشان در دو مورد صحبت کردن، یکی قوانین بین المللی بشردوستانه است و یکی هم قوانین بین المللی حقوق بشر است. ما فکر کنم که قوانین بین المللی بشردوستانه یکیش در زمان جنگ تطبیق میشه و یکیش هم اگر جنگ و درگیری و منازعه دامن نداشته باشه، هم دولت ها و هم طرفهای درگیر مکلف می‌سازه به رعایت حقوق بشر. خب میگن که قوانین بین المللی بشردوستانه و قوانین حقوق بشر بین المللی یکی و ماده 3 پروتکل ژنوا، ماده 2 پروتکل ژنوا به اصطلاح این صراحت دارد و در تلفات ملکی این نقض قوانین بشردوستانه است، هرچند که قوانین بین المللی بشردوستانه در زمان جنگ است، اما اینا خب مطابق تعریف از اون قوانین جنگ افغانستان بین دولت‌ها و کشورها نیست، بلکه یک منازعه داخلی است از طرف گروه مسلح. میگن که درست است که قوای اطلاعات در افغانستان تخطی میکنه از نقض حقوق بشری افراد، ولی من فکر کنم که اگر یک مقدار تاکید کمیسیون شما روی مخالفین مسلح اگر رسوخ داشته باشه بتواند چطور مطابق از این اسناد بین المللی یعنی طالبان را هم از رعایت قوانین بین المللی جنگ به اصطلاح وادارد. من فکر کنم که کمیسیون بارها در همه مصاحبات خود، در همه میزای مدور خود به اصطلاح واضحی ساختن موقف کمیسیون. خب گروه های درگیر کسی نیست که به اصطلاح با قوانین بین المللی، قوانین ملی تا قوانین اسرائیلی در بعض موارد رعایت کنه و روی احترام داشته باشه. ما مندیت کمیسیون، مکلفیت کمیسیون، خب ما با اون حد نیستم که ما مکلفیت کمیسیون ما بگم، دوستای دیگه هم هستن، ولی کمیسیون کوشا بوده در همه مواردی که یک آدم اگر اندک اشاره هم نشان بده بر رعایت همچین چیز، من فکر کنم که وظیفه کمیسیون است. Human Rights Commission in all his interview, roundtable, publication, stress, and put pressure on the both sides of the war, especially the government. It's easy, to criticize, to send a letter, to send an official letter, in roundtable. But through media, it's a kind of means of connecting through communication, to respect the humanitarian law and IHL. I am as a child rights coordinator, I'm not on the status, to tell you more about the position of the Human Rights Commission. But since in the past 14 years, which I am the employee of the Human Rights Commission, many times, the Commission urged the opposition party to respect the IHL.
So, shall I conclude now? Or? Okay. I'm leaving open the possibility to have a discussion about Islam and human rights. But for now, I would like to conclude by referring back to the 3 extraordinary challenges that your commission faces. You are building a future based on human rights, like all national human rights institutions do. Secondly, you are doing this with reference to human rights in a context in which there is a cultural challenge to address human rights while respecting the expectations of the population to live according to the dictates of the religion. And third, you are conducting this in the context of a war on terrorism that is violent, producing enormous human hardships, and involving the continued presence of foreign troops, 13,000 of them, on your territory. That is not the normal circumstances of a state that is building its human rights future. Your commission, navigating these nearly impossible waters, has nothing but complete admiration from an outsider like myself. And I do hope that when I return to Afghanistan, as I told you, I was there before most of you were born. When I return to Afghanistan, it will be a country living in peace, in accordance with human rights, and everybody will acknowledge a great debt to your commission. Thank you. Tashkur.
آقای استیفن مونت در آخر میگه که من حرفای خود را کوتاه میکنم ولی بحث نسبت بعدا در وقت بحث حقوق بشر و اسلام میمونم آزاد به شما. من روی سه چالش و مشکل عمده‌ای که کمیسیون شما با او مواجه است که او اولش به اصطلاح اعمار جامعه که به اصطلاح مفاهیم حقوق بشری نهادی نشود. این وظیفه کارمندای کمیسیون شماست. وظیفه دوم شما به اصطلاح محو یا انهای رسوم منفی و سنتی که در مورد حقوق بشر است و استفاده از نام اسلام در رابطه با خشونت‌ها در مورد اسلام در مورد ازی است و در مورد جنگ و تروریسم در کشور شما هنوز در کشور شما قوت‌های خارجی که خلاف نرم‌ها است هنوز در کشور شما وجود دارند و شما چطور می‌تونید که در این چالش‌ها جامعه را عاری از خشونت و احترام به حقوق انسانی افراد هم زن و مرد در کشور شما در پالوی یک فضای امن و صلح اعمار کنید. این وظیفه مکلفیت شماست. از شما تشکر.
So shall I turn it over to you now? It's you? Yes. Or we can continue the discussion if you
Can
want.
we take a couple of questions?
Oh, certainly, and I'm quite willing to
Couple of questions.
to move to the question that I was alluding to. So, questions? No questions. Everything is resolved. Okay. All right.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Stephen Marks. On behalf of my colleague, I would like to thank you very much for your nice and meaningful presentation. And thank you very much for the time that you give for us and for the issue that you raised here was very helpful for us. Thank you very much.
Okay, so finally we are at the end of the program, which seems like we started yesterday, but we are done with the 5-day program. And it gives me great memory because we've been thinking about it for quite some time, looking at the various options. But today, I think it's definitely my privilege and also a matter of joy for me to just, kind of put the whole thing like a summary because we started conceptualizing this somewhere around October 2016. Like, it's a belief that, all wonderful things start with one single person and a bright thought. It started with Musa Mahmoodi in September when we were just randomly talking of what we could do together because of the common interests that we both come from Maxwell and in the area of human rights. So we explored multiple options and perfectly he was the driving force. I think all credits to him because he's one person with a perfect vision even when I was at school and with greater interest in hard work and very serious intent of whatever we talk. So it was over like most of your working days or on Saturdays and Sundays. We've done a lot of Skype conversations on what to do and when to do. And I wish to sincerely thank you for this, bringing this successful initiative with a good thought, and also belief in us that we would be able to, kind of play a role in building this capacity within not only your organization but also towards your country. So I'm gratefully thankful to him and also to Dr. Sharma for Samar for having interested and also for having funded this program largely. And definitely, it's just not a word, but we would like to see this kind of close cooperation in implementation of many similar kind of programs, maybe phase-wise, for different kind of participants in the future. And to just give you a sneak peek, Jindal Global University has involved a lot of people. This is a very tough time and situation for us. We are hosting a lot of delegates and also the President of India with a lot of other dignitaries. Despite, from the Vice Chancellor to Professor Murthy, who's been the phenomenal pillar of, having to shoulder this as part of Center for Human Rights Studies, have never said a no to me for anything that I've asked. And I think that kind of an encouraging and also the trust in your own faculty is very important for any organization, and also having to believe in the efforts that one dreams of. I think I'm very grateful to both of them. And to say this university is also a good example of that. I don't have to say much in words. Secondly, the faculty. A lot of faculty, you've seen 10, but there are many such faculty that we have. Unfortunately, in the short term, we couldn't engage all of them. But all of those faculty who worked hard, imagining what to do in this 1.5 hours, and who have given them good resources to do. And also, I hope we typically engaged and been useful in kind of guiding you in the right directions. External speakers, Mr. P.C. Sharma, who's come all the way to giving you a good start. There could have been no perfect beginning, thanks to Professor Murthy to have, kind of given that kind of a special thing. And we always undermine the people in the background, but today I wanted to put them in the foreground. A lot of people from the administration, from Professor Murthy's office have tirelessly worked day and night. Logistics staff, our own staff in-house, who taken care to see everything is done in a very perfect, customized manner. And without them, I don't think I will be satisfied of having hosted. I think all credits only to them, because we are only in the knowledge area, but I think those are the most important things when we host an international delegation. So all credits to them. I think they're much above us in actually, having shouldered this. We always believe young people can bring out the energy and enthusiasm that's always required. I'm very grateful to Shagar and Agrima and many students who have willingly volunteered, who've gone, picked up, stayed with you throughout, ready to answer my calls even at 2 a.m. in the morning. I'm very grateful. I think we really need this kind of generation for India and the rest of the world who can actually, be for us to whatever we want. And you're nothing less than what any of us have done. So thank you so very much. And I think the whole profound gratitude is towards the anti-JGU community. And we just had 10 in-house sessions. 9 of them were from Jindal and one an external speaker who's a very distinguished icon in this area, an IPS and also a human rights person, and also the Central Bureau of Investigations Director, who gave you a lot of insights and his own admiration for the country of Afghanistan. And I think there was a silver lining, leaving us at a good base for what we should be delivering in the next of the few days. So we kind of set the tone for us as to what should we be focusing on. And I think this is a great direction. We might think it's a pilot, but I think we've just started. This is just the beginning. I'm sure I will definitely miss being in this space. I'm moving over to the DC. I'll be heading a country program in Latin America, but I will hopefully join you for every such kind of programs in the future, if you could work towards something like that. And I hope you had a very good experience, experiencing the Indian culture, food, hospitality, because normally we think it's very important for us to showcase the best of India, although we are very diverse. And we did every bit of that, bringing in imagination from everybody's mind. Like the sporting event, you had the Indo-Afghan football match with the students and faculty playing. I was rejoicing being an audience. I know what it means like to be just playing against, just for the, experiencing the sportsmanship. And also the sneak peek of the Bollywood evening and the Holi, which we played. I hope you're taking bright and colorful memories, a lot of pictures. So keep sharing such beautiful memories of Afghanistan with us. We would like to experience something like this because the delicacies, the campus life sporting events are the X factors of this campus. I can definitely tell you, I'm not over exaggerating, that's always there. So I hope we could give that flavor to you. And it's my appeal, and it's also my understanding that we have met all your special requirements. Say if supposing I've not met any of your requirements for any reason, known or unknown, please forgive me and hope we could rectify that in future. And I hope we made you stay at ease and comfort and very memorable for you that you may want to come again and again. And we hope to also host many of the students and dignitaries from your country in future. Please feel free, most of the deans you've met the Vice Chancellor, you've met a lot of people, interesting people like Stephen Marks and others. So you may want to keep in touch and also to bring in your own students to experience this. I know one of you mentioned to Raj that started a branch in Afghanistan. That's an overwhelmingly good compliment to us. But please keep encouraging students to come to us. And let me put on records our own gratitudes and tributes to the country of Afghanistan, the leadership of Afghanistan, because we've had a history of hosting Afghanistan leadership and dignitaries repetitively, and please let's continue the association with India in a very, very meaningful manner and beyond all the odds and the post-conflict situation. Thank you, Ajay. May I now request... Okay.
کوتاه ترجمه میکنم. خانم نورادا گفتن که ما تشکر میکنم از کسایی که این فرصت ایجاد کردن در رابطه با ظرفیت سازی شما، از جناب دکتر سیما سمر، رئیس کمیسیون حقوق بشر افغانستان، از آقای محمودی و از تمام همکاران مایز در پانتون که اونا شب و روز زحمت کشیدن، از دریورای که از همکارای رضاکار ما به تشریف دارن، عکس گرفتن، شما رو راهنمایی کردن، تنظیم کردن، ما را به اصطلاح بدون حوصله‌مندی از اونا، بدون کمک از اونا ناممکن بود که ورکشاپ ما یا کنفرانس ما به اصطلاح بر موفقیت انجامه. ما تشکر میکنم از شما، خاطرهای شما با ما خواهد بود. برای جناب مارکس توضیحات دادن که برای از ما معرفی کردن که روی از این موضوعات ما بحث کردیم و اینا فوتبال کردن، با ما یک جای به اصطلاح چیز کردن، یک فیلم دیدن، به سینما رفتیم و جای دیگه که شامل از این برنامه ها بود. از ما خواهش کردن که این خاطرهایتان با ما شریک بسازن و زمانی که شما به کشور خود برگشتن با افغانستان با دوستای دیگه شریک بسازن. ما امیدوار هستیم که همچون برنامه ها در آینده هم به اصطلاح تقویت شود و ان شاءالله در تدبیر برنامه‌های بعدی ما را خداوند توان توفیق بده.
At the outset, I wish to profusely thank Professor Stephen Marks for accepting our request at short notice and for being present with us. He has just come back from Addis Ababa, and we are really thankful to you for sparing your time for this session and giving a closing address. And the Center for Human Rights Studies is extremely pleased to organize this training program, and we are really delighted to have you with us for the last few days. And India and Afghanistan have enjoyed historical bonds and also the cultural bonds, and we are this is the 6th or 7th program we are doing for the government of Afghanistan, and so we hope you found it useful, and we cherish the memories of your stay with us, and we hope you have also enjoyed this program, and we hope to remain in touch with you in the coming months and years, and through email and phone, and we hope we'll have this mutual contact and exchange on. And I want to thank my colleague Anuradha for being the driving force and for conceiving this program and for tying up all the arrangements. And I also want to place on record my other colleague, Mr. Anubhav Tiwari, he's not here, and Sagar and others who extended support from behind for this program. And the program is not over yet. You will have some interesting things happening this evening, and also a visit to the National Human Rights Commission of India. And I hope you will have a pleasant and safe trip back home. And I want to wish you good luck in your work. And it's indeed a pleasure having you with us. And I want to compliment you for successful completion of this program. And if there is anything which has not gone according to your expectation, I take the responsibility and I apologize to you for inconvenience, if any. And we hope that future the programs will get better and better, and as we learn from our experience. Thank you.
Professor Stephen Marks, couple of lines for messages. Anything that you want to sentimentally reach out to them?
In the brief time I have spent with you, there is one thing that I have learned. I think you have a lot to teach us. And it has been an honor and a privilege to interact with you briefly. You have enormous challenges that you face. In conclusion, earlier, I painted a picture of you as being world-class heroes. In many ways you are. But I have functioned enough in national situations to know that when you get home and you have your daily problems to confront in carrying out your functions, you have many, many challenges that are not just finding the solution to the extraordinarily complex problems that you have. There's the daily grind, there are the daily difficulties, there's the bureaucracy, and I've looked over the program here, and I hope that some of the skills that our colleagues here at JGU have tried to impart with you will help you. But you bring to this over a decade of experience in doing so. So it has been a true honor for me to be able to interact briefly with you and to wish you every success in your very important continued work. I also did not choose as my topic what I normally work on. My field is human rights in development. I direct a center at Harvard called Human Rights in Development. And that is really what you're facing. You're facing the realization of human rights in the context of development and in the context of armed conflict. It is unique and extraordinary what you are doing, and once again, I wish you every success in your important endeavors.
آقای مورتی از خانم انورادا تشکر کرد و از تمام همکارایی که در تطبیق از این برنامه آموزشی ما را کمک کرده بود. اونا خوشی کردن از آقای ساغر، از همکارای دیگه ما که اینجا اونا بودن در پانتون. اونا گفتن که دوستای افغانستان و هندوستان و ما چندین بار برنامه‌های مختلف را اینجا برپا کردن. میشون باعث یک مهد تشریک مساعی با همه ارگان‌هایی که از افغانستان هستن. از همه از اونا تشکر کردن و موفقیت از این کنفرانس برای از اونا تبریک گفتن. جناب استیفن گفت که ما در گپ‌های آخر خود باید بگم که در وقت کم ریسارچات از شما آموختم. شما با چالش‌های بزرگ مواجه هستین و موفقیت شما را که شما موفق هم هستین. به نظر من شما قهرمان‌های دنیا هستین. به طور خلاصه باید بگم نه تنها چالش‌هایی که در بالا از نگاه امنیت، از نگاه مسائلی که ما پیشتر گفت زدیم مواجه شما هستند، بلکه خود زندگی کردن شما در شرایط دشوار باعث مدافعین حقوق بشر، زندگی شما، زندگی خانوادگی شما از جمله چالش‌های اجتماعی است که با وجود از او هم که آدم در یک افکار پریشان و ذهن نارام به اصطلاح کار میکنه، این هم از جمله چالش‌هایی است که من شما را تمجید میکنم که شما با همچون شرایط در مجموعه مدافعین حقوق بشری هستند و در اعاده حقوق بشر کار میکنند.
May I now request Shukrila Danish of the National Financial Management CHRS to share your views and experiences.
Thank you very much, Anuradha. I'm very pleased that we started this initiative by communication almost 6 months back, but finally we succeeded to implement this program recently. And during one stay that we have been here, and also we learned a lot of things here which were presented by the lecturers. And thank you from Stephen that he gave his time and provided very good information for us. On behalf of my colleagues, I would like to thank Ms. Anuradha for coordination this initiative. And I would like to thank from Mr. Murthy for the leadership of this initiative and programs. And I think Sagar is not here, so I would like to thank from Sagar that he really honestly and very hardly he collaborated with my colleagues and also helped us during the night, during the stay in the Global University, and also into the to the cinema, into the India, into the Delhi. So he really did a lot of hard working. And overall, I would like to thank from OP, General Global University, for providing this opportunity that the HRC could manage to send 15 professional staff to come here to exchange their knowledge and to exchange their experiences and learn some new tools and skills on the human rights development, law, and also the management overall. And it's worth mentioning that all participants are enjoyed a lot from these initiatives during the stay in India, especially in the General Global University. And I learned a lot from different program sessions. And I hope we will go back in the country, and also we will be able to implement all these new skills that we learned from here. And this was a good sign actually that it started between the Human Rights Commission and also the JGU. And also I hope we will continue this kind of programs in the future, that we will be able to send different groups to come here and also to learn some new tools and build up their capacity. And also all the participants are willing to work hardly and honestly in Afghanistan and to develop and build up our country. So we are also wishing that sometimes Afghanistan will be also peaceful, and also we will not see any further discrimination or also violation and any other issues which are suffering the peoples. So once again, I would like to thank you very much from all your helps, all your cooperation, all of the programs that you presented during this 5 to 6 days. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'll ask. Okay, lastly, I would now request the spokesperson of AHRC, Mr. Mohammad Bilal Siddiqui, to share your informal thoughts on what you enjoy the most and what would you look forward to do and what you think this means for you in total. So something very specific.
Yeah, thank you very much. And also, at first, I deeply appreciate from JGU and also from Mr. Murthy and also Stephen Angola and also Sagar and all colleagues in JGU, because this program is very efficient for us and also for our colleagues. And also this program will support us and also support our program activity in our institution, and also we can implement very comprehensively our program and also our activity. And also this program help us how we can find the conflict, the problem, and also how we can make a plan for solving of this program. And also we share our experience, and also we understand from different experience of the professor, and also those who share the information, and also and other we learn a lot in these courses in different areas, because the international standard of human rights, conflict, how we can manage the conflict, how we can resolve the conflict, what is the international instrument for human rights, and also how they can support us how we can use this in our society, in our organization. Because there is many other functions, and also the best point how we can implement some of the international instrument in our society by the function of AHRC. And also there is other local experience. And also we have in other side the international instrument. It will help us to implement very comprehensively this instrument in our society to protect, promote the human rights in our country. And also we hope this program, and also I believe this program support the human rights promotion and protection in our society, because all of our colleagues understand the tool of and also activity, and also other things. And also they can implement these things during as a guided activity. And also we learn a lot about some cultural program like Huli. It was a very good program for us, and also we learned a lot about the Huli, because all our Huli joined in this program. And also we saw some film, and also this film was also had a good human rights message, because how we can build, or how we can make activity based involve of a woman in the society, how we can campaign, how we can combat in some of tradition in our society, because you know better, we had some problem in our society. It showed the reality of our society, and also it's our responsibility to fight against this tradition. It was very useful, and also fantastic for us. And also we hope the JGU all the time take their relationship with the AHRC, and also from the AHRC side, we will try to continue our cooperation, and also our connection about capacity building, because we need for capacity building. And also we learned the middle of some of people. It was very useful for us, and also we understand. Hope this cooperation is continue, and also we will work together up to protect, promote the human rights situation in Afghanistan, also in India. And also we share our experience, and also some reports on information. Thank you very much. Hope we can success to protect the human rights, to promote the human rights situation in Afghanistan and India. Thank you very much.
Okay, so we go to the highlight of today's closing ceremony, giving away the certificates of participation and our very special mementos. I think Professor Moti will be able to tell you the history behind, this logic behind the scarves informally to you. But as of now, we'll proceed towards the ceremony. Sharma would call out names in a specific order, and just walk through this way and move it through this way. So it's in the order, so you will know who will come first and next. Collect your certificate for today's guests, our privileged, distinguished faculty, and indeed our honor to having to distribute. The right person to distribute this would be actually them, both of them. So get your certificate of participation, and Professor Moti will honor you with a scarf and collect your
We are presenting you with two things. One is a scarf where all the 6 school colors are represented, and that's a university scarf. Second, we're giving you a pen drive, come pen, come laser pointer. It's 3 in 1. Yeah. The pen drive has presentations of all the 5 days. It's stored inside the pen drive.
Okay, Thank you all so much. I think this is just a small token of our memory. The scarf has got a lot of institutional representation. We've got 5, 6 schools, so 6 different colors. And it's the Harvard style of our very own Harvard product, Rajkumar, to have designed this. So I'm very happy to see Afghans wearing this.
Oxford, not Harvard. Oxford.
Oxford is right.
I'm very happy to see Afghans wearing this, and I hope you will feel proud to wear this in your country, because your country I think it's kind of needed to have this kind of accessory. With this, can I think Mr. Babratsai wanted to share a few thoughts. I'm sorry that I couldn't call out to you.
Yeah, you mentioned.
Yeah, please go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much for all the efforts and collaboration of GP General University, and also the lecturer, the professor, which was included in this agenda. As a participant and as an interpreter, of this training course, while the lecturer, the professor introduced themselves, most of them told that we have been given training to Afghan police, Afghan army, Afghan civil society, Afghan students, and all Afghanistan. I'm very proud of your collaboration, and I'm very proud of your kindness, because I'm proud for the strategic partnership between Afghanistan and India. Still, we have met many of the Afghan students, still they are continuing their education here. One thing, which I kind of proposed, yesterday we visited, the Delhi, the market outside of Delhi. So then we use, the metro. I'm very sorry, we are from the country. One or two of our colleagues, I don't want to name, they said that I use for the first time of my life the token to get into the metro. We came from such a country. War, fantasy, fear, mind, exclusion, all these things. As a proposal of the human rights activists, this is not I'm going to a political side. If there is a treaty in the international standard to ban, the neighboring countries for the interference, for the interference, for the making problem of we are as a nation among 92 countries. We have the life of education, the life of enjoyment of our children, the life of women's rights. We have all the life which other people in the West, East, and Europe has, to practice. We have the same life. So far, 150,000 US troops plus all the 34 Western countries come to Afghanistan. There is no changes in our life. Only we have the civil society, only we have the media. This is the reward of these international forces. I came last week. One of my sisters, she's a doctor in charge of the hospital. She told me from 9 o'clock I was sleeping under the table because I put all the other tables in the floor and hide myself from 9 o'clock up to 3:30. Tomorrow we are going to prepare our visa to the India. Hazrat Ali Karamallahu Wajhu said in one of his books, in unpeace situation, in unnormal condition, learning, teaching, and getting something from the lecturer is a kind of fire which you're burning in the tornado. That is useless. So we, in such a condition, we defend the human rights, we work, we education, women, blah, 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 blah. It's very easy from Eastern countries to complain and to point out about the bottlenecks in the system, governments, practicing, education. But ground reality is other things. If you practice, one woman, for example, 15 kilometers, 50 kilometers in Peterborough, she is delivering a baby. Husband banned that you are a woman, don't go.
and the brother said, she's sick, I have to treat them to the clinic which is located 50 kilometers. So just I made you a little bit sad because if in this period of time, we have a proverb in Afghanistan say that the chair of students, if you become to the age of 50, 60, 80, 90, but it is the effect of these chairs made you a little bit noisy, a little bit laughy, a little bit like a student of the grade 9, 8, 10. We enjoy it, we just reverse our childhood while we sit here. Some of them, believe me, in a month we haven't laughed. Problem of social problems, political problems, work, tough work, and blah, blah, blah. To cut it short, I am thankful from all the staff, from the driver, from the cook, from the kitchen, from the servants, from the lecturer, professor, from the people they deliver these services to us, that they made success this conference. I mention again the friendship between Afghanistan and India, the strategic partnership. We are proud of that partnership. Still, the Afghans are getting training. You are, and one of the colleagues, he is French in Kabul, said, the South Asian country, India, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, these are, very, very ahead in management, training, providing, because in one hand, it's easy for Afghanistan to reach there. On another hand, same culture, same food, the people are very, very merged to each other. I hope this friendship continue in the future. We, as a representative, I represent all these groups by their permission, we will apply whatever we learn to our own life at home, to our neighborhood, to our workplace, to Afghan society, and Afghan country. Thank you very much for my.
Thank you so much. I'm like awestruck. I don't know what to say, but thank you so much.